which will be stage one. We aren't quite there yet, but at least it gives people to prep, time to prep, and companies to prep, and stakeholders to prep.
Premier Doug Ford promised big news tomorrow, but we can tell you tonight what phase one of reopening Ontario could look like. There are things we haven't been able to do in months, but according to a draft document obtained by CBC News Toronto, the Ontario government is set to lift some pandemic restrictions on retail, construction, sports, and medical services. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley broke this story and joins us live now from Queen's Quay in Spadina. Mike, what can we expect tomorrow?
Okay, so Dwight, I'm just going to start by saying it is key that this is a draft news release, so things could change. But what this document that I obtained does is it lays out the plan for reopening. And so the key things that you're going to see announced tomorrow are plans for reopening of retail shops that are not in malls. So all retail stores that are not in malls would be allowed to reopen with some physical distancing limits still in place. They'd have to have a separate street front entrance. The limited space available would determine how many people would be allowed in. People would have to book appointments, those kinds of things. Construction is the other big sector that would be allowed to reopen. The announcement would be coming tomorrow, more details there, but basically it says in this document Ontario is going to lift all of the restrictions on non-essential construction. Other things you'd hear about, pet services like pet grooming, veterinary appointments, use of off-leash dog parks is going to be allowed as well. Individual sport competitions without spectators, things like tennis and horse racing, that would be allowed. And finally, picnics in parks would be allowed, but not with more than 5 people because, according to this news release, the province is going to keep its restrictions on social gatherings to a maximum of 5, at least for now. Dwight?
All right, Mike, of course, the big question here is when could we see these things actually happen?
All right, so we know this announcement is coming tomorrow, but there's actually no date on the news release that I've seen. In fact, what it says is Ontario will begin stage 1 of reopening on insert date here. So we don't know when. The thing that could happen, though, is as early as Saturday. This is still to be confirmed, but according to this document, on Saturday, things like marinas, golf courses, and private campgrounds would be allowed to reopen, and that would be, Dwight, in time for the Victoria Day weekend. But the rest of those things, like the retail shops and construction, no date yet. For that, we'll find out tomorrow when Premier Ford makes the announcement, expected at 1 o'clock tomorrow.
Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley with some information that we didn't have before. Got it for us tonight. Thank you for your time, Mike. We'll look forward to your story tomorrow. Now, the mayor of Mississauga has a message for the Premier about plans to reopen the province.
Mississauga is not yet ready to reopen up this quickly. I call on the province to take the situation across the GTHA into consideration in advance of tomorrow's announcement on phase 1 of the reopening.
Now, Mayor Crombie says although cases in Ontario are declining this week, 25% of the new cases in the province are from Peel region, with Peel and Toronto accounting for 75% of those cases. Now, these numbers are also a concern for another city in Peel region.
As news of reopening begins to come from the province, it is important for me to stress that while rates of increases may be slowing, we are still seeing new cases of COVID-19 in Brampton and throughout the region of Peel. Also, while many of those new cases were picked up in our sweep of senior settings, some have arisen in the community, which indicates that local transmission of COVID-19 is still occurring.
Brampton's Mayor Patrick Brown adds the city is consulting with health professionals about reopening, but the city still has a long way to go. The mayor is also asking for more help from the province and the federal government, saying both levels need to work with cities in order for their economies to survive. There are more than 3,200 cases in Peel region and 217 COVID-19 deaths. Parents and students can expect to learn early next week about the remainder of their school year. That's according to the education minister. Meanwhile, some employees in the province's education sector will have the opportunity to be redeployed to long-term care and retirement homes.
Available positions could include custodial or maintenance roles, children and youth service workers, social workers, and educational assistants, among others. And we're asking all of them to consider, knowing that they will be fully trained, that they'll be provided with PPE, and that they will continue to maintain their employment relationship with the school board.
Lecce says the first such redeployment is already happening in Kenora, where QP education workers have volunteered to help in local hospitals. He says the government will launch a portal for education workers to submit their interest. They will then be matched with positions in their communities. COVID-19 has been decimating long-term care homes for weeks. Now, Ontario has adopted an emergency order allowing the province to make temporary management changes in these facilities. But with nearly 1,300 long-term care residents dead, there are questions tonight about why the change is only happening now. Lisa Shing has more.
With the government managing these.
In mid-April, the president of the union that represents 60,000 frontline health workers, including personal support workers, started calling for the province to take over managing long-term care homes, like in British Columbia.
SEIU requested this oversight and management of the government weeks ago and hundreds of deaths ago.
She says today's news is a start, now that an emergency order will allow the government to appoint new management to a long-term care home, including a person, hospital, or corporation.
We can only hope by putting an outside party in to see what's going on that we'll see those improvements. But the big question is, why did it take so much time?
The government can step in when a home is experiencing a high level of spread among residents and staff, a high number of deaths, or has persistent staffing issues. But that's already the case in many long-term care homes in the province. Hundreds of residents have died, so have some health workers. Even the Canadian military was called into 5 of the worst-hit homes to alleviate staffing shortages, including Orchard Villa, where Sherry Zielinski's mother lives.
Having it privately operated, I think they were allowed to, not follow the rules, and that's where things dropped and went off the cliff.
But the province denies this order is coming too late.
We're going to respectfully disagree about slow to respond. We're responding rapidly, day by day.
The making of this emergency order doesn't mean that we're going to do anything with it right now. It's just a tool in our toolbox to use if we need it.
The emergency order comes as the number of cases continues to rise in nursing homes. So far, more than 1,200 residents have died. That's more than 71% of all COVID-19 deaths in Ontario. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
We are learning new details tonight about the first Ontario nurse to die from COVID-19. 57-year-old Brian Beattie worked at a long-term care home in London, Ontario. His death coming on the same week nurses are being celebrated around the world. Alicia San has more.
57-year-old Brian Beattie considered his co-workers and the residents he looked after his second family. His niece Amber told CBC News. He loved his job. We always knew that. However, since his passing, hearing all the stories from colleagues and those he cared for truly opens our eyes on how much he touched others' lives. Beattie died on International Nurses' Day, not usually a sad occasion, but this time it became a day the Canadian Federation of Nurses feared would come.
We knew that many were sick, either at home or in the hospitals. But then on yesterday morning, we got the sad news of Brian's passing.
Beattie worked at Kensington Village, a long-term care home, which first declared an outbreak on April 3rd. Since then, 5 residents have died. It's one of 174 long-term care homes in the province experiencing an outbreak, which have accounted for more than 1,200 COVID-19 deaths in the province.
And when you look at healthcare workers in general in this country, they get infected between 11 to 24% of all cases. That means that we are not protecting the front line of healthcare.
In terms of the staff, in order to protect.
Meanwhile, in London, health officials say they're not currently experiencing a shortage of supplies.
And there are some pressures on things like gowns and hand sanitizer, but at this point, the supply is meeting the demand.
The fight for systemic change will continue in Brian Beattie's honor.
We're going to keep on fighting to make sure that nurses, that healthcare workers have the personal protective they need to do our job.
Beattie's niece Amber says about his legacy, "We can learn a lot from his dedication, and we can all carry his laughter inside of us. Everyone stay safe." Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
A woman is dead after being struck by a City of Toronto vehicle near Lawrence and Morningside.
We do have a woman whom we believe to be in her 70s, was fatally killed here, and we have, again, lots to do, lots of witnesses to speak with, and asking for folks, if they have information, to get into touch with us at Traffic Services.
Investigators say the City of Toronto pickup was headed west on Lawrence around 10 this morning when the driver lost control. The truck went off the road and hit a fence, and at that point it crossed back over Lawrence, mounted another sidewalk where the woman was struck and killed. The city vehicle then crashed into two parked cars in the driveway. The victim's identity has not been released. The driver of the city vehicle was taken to hospital with minor injuries. Police are asking witnesses or anyone with dash cam or home surveillance video to contact them. As more and more patients recover from COVID-19, doctors are trying to get a better sense of the impacts the virus has on the body. For those who are hospitalized, the road to recovery can be long and challenging, and it doesn't end when they're sent home. Farah Morelli spoke to one man who is still feeling the impacts of COVID-19 nearly a month after being discharged.
I'm still very blessed and very fortunate. I'm here, I'm the right side of the dirt. A lot of people aren't so fortunate.
It's been nearly a month since Nigel Main came home after spending 16 days in an induced coma on a ventilator. Throughout that time, his wife Nancy couldn't be near him. Neither could his 4 daughters, one of whom is a resident physician.
And the nurse would help us. They would hold the cell phone to his ear and we would talk to him. We were all conferenced in and we were hoping he could hear us and keep fighting.
Main, who was a healthy and active 60-year-old, did keep fighting. He was taken off the ventilator and came home 27 days after first being hospitalized for COVID-19.
And I put him in the car and we were just both crying and it's like, oh my God, okay, you're gonna be okay.
So I know I lost about 25 pounds, but that's mostly muscle mass.
Main's kidneys had started to fail in the ICU, and 2 weeks after coming home, he was back in hospital to treat a blood clot.
Every couple of days, I have a nurse either calls me or visits. I have occupational therapist session. I'm now being lined up to see a psychiatrist to talk about some of my emotions because I have my moments and a few flashbacks.
While Main's symptoms are common for someone who spent a lot of time in the ICU, doctors say there's still a lot of unknowns about COVID-19 and the recovery process.
It's important to know this is a new condition, so we're acquiring knowledge as we go here. So we have yet to see, I think, the full effect on patients.
Dr. Angela Chung is co-leading a team that's studying just that. She previously studied the recovery of SARS patients.
We do know that some of the sickest patients do have a long road to recovery. From our past experience, some of those actually take 5 years or more.
While Main's road to recovery will be long, it's being made easier by family and having those he loves nearby.
How nice is it to have him sort of physically close to you again?
Awesome.
He's installed a sign on his lawn as a tribute to his doctors and the nurses at Southlake, who he says saved his life.
They're all cheering and it was just lovely. So a lot of love and support.
Farah Morelli, CBC News, Toronto.
Oh, we love a happy ending, but Colette, you're starting to sound like a broken record, talking about all these broken records.
I am, aren't I? Again today. I know, sometimes records aren't, breaking them isn't the greatest thing, is it, right? Another record low this morning, minus 2.6. The old record was minus 1.7, and it had been holding since 1967, but there we go again. It's okay. Tonight, we are not going to be breaking another record with our low temperature. There are your averages where we are not, but we're going to be going closer to that by the time we get to Friday. Things looking good there with some of the heat that will come back in. Our current temperatures, hey, it was a nice day today. You can't really complain with all that sunshine, and we're still looking at that and a temperature of 12 degrees. So the frost advisory tonight, the city is not included in this time because our temperature is going to be above freezing, but many areas, not just around the GTA, but the Niagara region, again, into a frost advisory. So we will see those temperatures, if not down to freezing, getting close to it. You want to protect any plants that you can there. For now, of course, there's nothing to see on the radar because of that sunshine. The sun will set at about 8:34 tonight. This next system that's going to be moving in will get some of the clouds through the overnight hours, but they'll really thicken up towards tomorrow morning, and then the rain will come in towards tomorrow afternoon and kind of come in some waves. So it'll come in and then stop, and then we'll get some more towards tomorrow afternoon. So our overnight low after 8 p.m. tonight, 9 degrees, 3 for the overnight low, and then 11 for tomorrow. It's after that the warmth comes, Dwight. I'll tell you about it coming up.
Can't wait to hear it. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. Take advantage of special offers now. It's hard to stop a train.
It's that time of year when people start flocking to outdoor patios in our city to enjoy some good food and drinks in the warm weather. But things are going to be a little different this year. Toronto is looking at allowing restaurants to open outdoor spaces, but it's still not clear how that will work. Greg Ross is live near King and Strawn. Greg, many restaurants are counting on this for their survival.
Well, they sure are, Dwight. One restaurant owner told me today that the money they make during patio season is what allows them to stay open for the rest of the year. You look at this patio here behind me. Most years, on a nice spring night like tonight, a downtown patio like this would be hopping. This year, they haven't even pulled out the table and chairs. And many restaurant owners are telling me they need to soon because it's the difference between survival and closing their doors for good.
I am struggling to figure out how we're going to keep the doors open.
Anita Mancuso owns Sotto Voce Wine and Pasta Bar on College Street, which just marked its 20th anniversary on May 1st.
For 2 years, I've been planning this huge street party. All our clients, 20 years, big white ball, and it didn't exactly go that way.
No party, and because of COVID-19, right now, no customers. Not even on her patio on a sunny day like this. Under normal circumstances, Sotto Voce can fit 12 tables on the patio.
The tables normally are 4 inches apart.
But even if the city does eventually allow restaurants to open patios, with physical distancing guidelines, Mancuso says she would only be able to fit about 5 tables on her patio now.
It just doesn't work. 5 tables cannot support the rent in this city.
And that's why Mancuso says she needs the city to allow her to expand her outdoor seating area, something the mayor says he's considering.
First step, what I've asked the city staff to come forward with is areas of the city that would be appropriate to take up a road space and sidewalk space. It's not the case you can do that everywhere. We've had some success, obviously, on King Street with the advent of the King Street pilot.
With so many restaurants and cafes along College Street, Mancuso says she thinks the city could close down a lane of traffic to create more space. But at the very least, she'd like to use some of the sidewalk.
There's no reason why tables couldn't go the length of my restaurant here. I could probably get 3 or 4 tables in.
At this point, she says, it may be the only hope to save her business.
I'm not going down without a fight, so I'll take anything. I would love to open the patio.
Toronto's mayor is not the only one considering expanding these outdoor spaces. Markham and Hamilton are a couple of nearby cities, and across the country, cities like Vancouver, Calgary, and Winnipeg are also looking into it, Dwight.
The new normal. Thank you, Greg. This May-long weekend, the mayors of Cottage Country are urging GTA residents to stay put and not head up north. The mayors of the municipalities surrounding Lake Simcoe say their message is aimed at those who want to get away for the weekend. They say visitors must consider the negative impact they might have on local communities, emergency services, and healthcare facilities, reminding everyone that if travel is unnecessary, it should be avoided. Now, many outdoor amenities such as playgrounds, washrooms, beaches, and boat launches are still off limits. If residents ignore their requests, the mayors are asking them to practice physical distancing and bring what they need with them from the city. After the break, when students can start applying to receive federal help if they've lost a job this summer. Plus,
as future doctors, we need to have that hands-on training, especially for the labs next semester. I'm really not sure what they're planning for that yet.
months away from the fall semester, universities prepare for virtual learning. How students are feeling about that, coming up next. Post-secondary students facing summer job challenges are now just days away from an emergency student benefit paycheck.
Starting this Friday, May 15th, students will be able to apply for the new benefit through the Canada Revenue Agency. To help manage the volume of applications, applicants will be asked to apply over 4 days, like we did with the CERB, depending on their month of birth, and can expect their payment in 3 to 5 business days from when they are deemed eligible if they're using direct deposit.
Students just finishing high school and planning to go on to university must call the CRA to activate their social insurance numbers before applying. The benefit is for $1,250 a month. Those with a disability or dependent would get $2,000 a month. Payments will be available from May to August and will not have to be paid back, but students will have to reapply every 4 weeks. As with the CERB, students can still earn up to $1,000 a month without losing access to the student benefit. Universities have started to lay out plans for the fall semester, and it looks like most classes will be held online. That presents all sorts of problems for people who are counting on a campus experience. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson shows us their frustrations.
This should be a moment for Amina Shakil to celebrate. She got into a university program of her choice. But now, without the promise of campus life, she's anything but excited.
I had planned out what residence I was going to apply for, and I was looking forward to meeting new friends.
The online option presents other problems to students already in university, like this first-year med student at McGill.
As future doctors, we need to have that hands-on training, especially for the labs next semester. I'm really not sure what they're planning for that yet.
I'm just looking at pouring basically thousands of dollars into this apartment when it's not necessary now for me to be here. And also receiving a level of education via online classes, which traditionally would be less expensive than in-person classes.
Despite such concerns, it looks like online courses will be the reality for most Canadian universities come fall. In British Columbia, UBC and Simon Fraser University unveiled plans to teach large classes online while allowing for small seminar groups or labs to be held in person. Tuition won't be reduced.
The students are receiving top quality education at an internationally recognized and ranked university, and their degrees will reflect that.
Administrators stress they're working hard to improve the quality of online courses students will have in the fall. And that may have to do for Shakil. She's thinking of accepting her offer.
I was thinking about deferring my offer for a year, but just with the way everything's going, I'm not sure if I should take a gap year because I don't know if I'm going to be able to find a job, and it's not like a normal gap year where you could like travel or anything.
At a time of life usually marked by excitement and anxiety, there's now a stress of a different kind. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Dozens of people are suing long-term care home operators, accusing them of not doing enough to protect residents. But what are the chances of those lawsuits succeeding in court?
You have to prove that a nursing home was negligent, and that will be an interesting legal question. What is negligence given the pandemic we're in?
After the break, legal experts weigh in on the odds of winning, plus details of the latest lawsuit against Chartwell, the largest operator of senior homes in Canada. Another class action lawsuit has been filed against a company that owns nursing homes in the province. This one is against Chartwell, where former Ontario Premier Mike Harris is the chair of the board. Lorena Redekop takes a look at the case and the challenge for people filing these legal actions.
She was known as Saint Teresa. Her family moved Teresa Pugliese into the Chartwell home in Aurora last August. She died April 26th.
She was a great mom, a great mother-in-law, beautiful grandmother, and everybody's grieving for her loss.
They say the home didn't call them soon enough when her condition worsened, so they didn't get to say their goodbyes.
To know that for almost 2 months I can't even go and see her, and then to find out that my mother passed away, that breaks my heart.
The family alleges the home didn't properly protect her or other residents, not separating people who had the virus.
They said every day, whenever you watch the news, isolate the person who has the virus. What they did, they keep it together.
They've filed a class action lawsuit. It names 27 homes in Ontario owned by Chartwell, alleging the company failed by not properly planning for and responding to COVID-19, not having adequate staff, not properly communicating with families, and not complying with public health directives. These allegations have not been proven in court. Chartwell responded, offering condolences to the families, saying every single death in one of our homes is one too many, and that it will respond to the statement of claim once it has been served. It's one of several class actions against long-term care homes during this pandemic.
When you have class actions,
This lawyer has successfully brought a lawsuit against a seniors' home in the past.
you have to prove that a nursing home was negligent, and that will be interesting legal question. What is negligence given the pandemic we're in? Just because we're in a pandemic, it doesn't give nursing homes a free pass.
The Pugliese family says this is about more than their story.
There's a lot of people that, don't know where to turn, and I think we're here to get justice for all of these people that lost their mothers, sisters.
Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Canadians who have had COVID-19 will likely have already heard from a contact tracer and their local public health unit. To many others, this sort of detective work is largely a mystery. So the National's Adrian Arsenault spent a day with the London Middlesex team here in Ontario to see what it takes to get ahead of the virus.
And we're just going to gently twist side to side.
As they happen now, this is the morning meeting, ahead of a 12-hour shift and a virus to hunt.
We did have 7 new cases. Majority of which were associated with long-term care, either staff or resident.
Infection numbers in London Middlesex are low, but they've learned each positive person can infect 3 others. So the goal is to contact each case within 24 hours of a positive test and find all their contacts.
So when it started, contacts of a case were tremendous. We could have people with 30, 40, 50 contacts. Until we started seeing people self-isolating, those contacts went to 1 or 2.
What happens when businesses open again? This office seems a bit abandoned because some 60-odd workers are making the crucial calls from home. Since they follow every person through their illness, some calls are awful as COVID's grip tightens.
They can hear the shortness of breath and the inability to even talk, and they've had to respond and call 911 for that person to get them to hospital.
That's pretty terrifying.
The 2 days prior to your symptom onset, as well as the 14 days after your symptoms have started. And that's what's been identified as you would be most infectious to others.
Julie Frederick is a public health inspector by trade. Getting to the truth is her specialty.
Sometimes the story changes right over the time, and they develop a sense of trust with the investigator, and more kind of unfold as time goes on.
Because are people afraid they're going to get in trouble somehow?
Definitely. If we've had a situation where an employer has very clearly told someone that you're not to come to work when you're sick, and then they do, it could present challenges for their employment as well.
Right. So if you find
that is our case.
This means being kind and fast, and she's both.
Good afternoon, Julie speaking. How are you? You've been better, I bet.
On the phone, a young man. He's been very careful, but the questions have to come.
Is it a 1-bedroom unit, 2-bedroom unit? How do you coordinate things like going out for essentials? Kitchen, one open kitchen, I would assume. So it is shared laundry facilities.
That was a key question in a conversation lasting nearly half an hour. Persistent, comforting, not just about tracing, but making sure people get help. We reached out to the man who says he was relieved to hear from the contact tracing team hasn't been out of his apartment in weeks.
There you are.
Hi there, yes.
But he learned recently someone else in the building was infected.
This probably would have been like a washing machine or a dryer or the door to the laundry room kind of thing. But yeah, that would be my theory as to where and when I picked it up.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, this is the first day I've been able to kind of be up and about on my own. There were several days where I couldn't get out of bed.
Once Matthew McKay felt ill, he locked everything down.
Only had groceries dropped off, and we made sure we didn't go anywhere because having felt this the way I felt it, I wouldn't want to give it to anyone else. So yeah, I didn't have to rack my brain too hard as to who I'd been in contact with at least. So
Well, there's a relief for you, eh?
yes, yeah.
Another relief that his wife and son tested negative.
Am I hearing right that it's your 1-year-old's birthday today?
It is, yes. His birthday's today, so not how we thought we'd be spending it.
Not how anyone thought life would be like now.
Now, Adrian Arsenault was able to check in with Matthew again. His cough is still not great, but he sounds a lot better. His wife and young son are just fine. So, because the family has been really careful along with the monitoring from the tracing team, here's a case of COVID-19 that didn't get a chance to spread. Niagara Falls would normally be a busy place on the Victoria Day long weekend. Of course, the pandemic means there's been a huge drop in visitors to the region, but there are some signs of optimism tonight.
So at the moment, everyone's waiting for that day when, as I say, we get the all clear on the COVID. And once that happens, Niagara Falls, which is the #1 tourism destination, the #1 leisure destination in this country, it'll be back.
According to local officials, a normal year would see about 14 million people visit the falls. Tourism generates over $2 billion a year for the local economy. It also means tens of thousands of jobs. Right now, with most attractions and businesses closed, thousands of workers have been laid off, but there is hope that once the virus is under control, the region will be an ideal spot for staycationers.
There's great potential. I don't think people are going to be too keen on getting on airplanes this summer. The automobile is arguably the best mode of social isolation transportation.
Charms had to lay off most of its staff in March. The owner is hopeful of a resurgence in visitors, but notes that also depends on the Canada-U.S. border reopening, as 1/5 of the visitors to the winery are from the States. A visit to the art gallery is just not possible during the pandemic, but a new exhibit is trying to put the van in Van Gogh. The immersive Van Gogh exhibit was supposed to make its world premiere this week. Instead of people taking it in person, the exhibit has adapted to a drive-in. Ticket holders will drive into the former printing presses at 1 Yonge Street, 14 vehicles at a time. Once inside, a 35-minute show takes place while everyone stays in their cars. This new form of the exhibit is set to open in mid-June. I would take that in. Wouldn't you call it?
I would. I've seen so many images of it, and it looks so amazing. I love this idea. I mean, we got to be creative, right? We have to adapt. So yes, I would definitely be checking that one out. Let's check out what's going on with your weather headlines here. We are going to see some clouds rolling in. It looks like kind of later overnight towards the morning hours, but definitely increasing cloudiness. That'll hold a bit of heat in. So still some areas where we'll see some frost, but we don't have the advisory for the city. Tomorrow afternoon is when we'll see some rain moving in, kind of coming in batches or waves. And there's a slight chance for some isolated thunderstorms in there too, which is enhanced around the Golden Horseshoe, the Niagara region. And then the temperatures, okay, not tomorrow, but Friday, we are going to see those temperatures going up there towards those upper teens, getting close to 20 degrees. The advisory areas then for the frost tonight, temperatures don't even have to go down to freezing, by the way. They can be just above. If they're close to it, we still get those conditions. Highs from today running well below seasonal. We should be closer to 18, 19 degrees, up to 13, and that's a roundup to get there, in fact. And our winds, mostly they've been coming from the south or southeasterly direction. We'll kind of see that shift east-southeast as we go through tonight and into tomorrow. It'll get a little bit breezy at times, but here are the clearer skies. We still have some sunshine out there to enjoy until it sets just after 8:30. The clouds that will be rolling in, they kind of come in, as I say, in the overnight hours, and then there's a bit of this break here, and then more clouds come in, and in the afternoon the rain comes in. We'll get that batch going through. We get into a dry slot, then overnight Thursday into Friday, still some chances of seeing the rain moving through, and at times into Friday morning, maybe a little bit on the heavy side there too. Now, Saturday still looks like we're going to have some cloud cover, but I think we'll get some sunny breaks and see some of that breaking up in there as well. Tonight's temperatures then, nice to see no negatives here. It is certainly cooler where it's going to take longer for any of those clouds to be coming in, though. And tomorrow afternoon, I know we're not seasonal. I know we've got some wet conditions to come, but at least I hope it will help knowing that, hey, Friday, things turn around with our temperatures at least. 20 degrees there for our high on Friday. Saturday looks like at this time anyway, and this forecast has been changing a lot with the weekend, but Saturday looking at the moment like the best day and the first part of Sunday, Dwight.
Looking good. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
People were so excited about getting a pie. I mean, it's such a simple thing. We take things for granted like that. And I think there's nothing that is like a warm hug from your mom like a pie.
I'd have to agree. After the break, why this man decided to spread joy in his community, one free pie at a time. As a thank you to frontline workers during this pandemic, the Downtown Young BIA has partnered with artists to create uplifting murals on boarded-up retail stores.
The neighborhood got a bit drab with the hoarding up due to the pandemic, but the artists have come out and really just done a big thank you for the frontline workers and the businesses that unfortunately maybe have had to shut down or just go to takeout.
The BIA has partnered up with street artists and K-Dance World to create the colorful murals, turning wooden boards into messages of hope. The murals along the Yonge Street corridor are aimed at lifting people's spirits as the community stands together through this pandemic. It started off as something just to pass the time. Then Bradley Harder decided to pay it forward, baking a couple of pies for his friends. He decided to continue this act of kindness, having baked almost 200 pies now for people. Now he's urging others to do similar acts.
Hashtag Pandemic Pie Project. Let's get it out there.
Squeeze the crap out of it.
My name is Bradley Harder, and I bake pies. The beginning of the pandemic, early April, I was doing a little thing on Facebook called Cooking Without Pants. Peppercorns, nutmeg, a couple of sticks of cinnamon, and people were like getting excited about it, and I thought it was kind of fun. And I ran out of some ingredients, and my friend Erica and Craig called me and said, well, we'll send you some. Had a delivery person bring food to me, and I was so moved by this that I thought, well, what can I do? I thought about it, and I said, well, I can bake. I know how to bake a pie. So I baked a pie for Erica and Craig.
Voila.
And I baked pies for my friend Mark and Darlene, who were doing food runs for me as well.
We make a blueberry pie for you.
Some of my neighbors started asking about them, so I started baking them for them. And it just snowballed and kept going and going and going.
Oh, they're so beautiful. Look at that.
I've baked to date 178 pies, and I've got about 10 pies on my table and more pies in the oven. And I plan to bake another 15 pies today. It's just pie, 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 pie. And I realized that people were so excited about getting a pie. I mean, it's such a simple thing. We take things for granted like that. And I think there's nothing that is like a warm hug from your mom like a pie, you know? It's just love. It expresses love.
These are the supplies that people just bring.
First, I was footing the bill to bake the pies. Now, the ingredients just find their way to my door, and I just have to bake. If this finds its way to the national news, I'd like to challenge anybody in any community across Canada to reach out and bake something or do what you do. Give it away for free. It'll come back to you, I swear. It's a bad business model on paper, but it works. People are good.
There you go.
Show some love. Befriend a stranger, help somebody. Hashtag Pandemic Pie Project.
After the break, today's frontline hero. Stick around for that. We'll be right back. While healthcare workers focus their energies on keeping us safe, Dishni Jayasuriya felt it was important to show their children that they matter too. That's why her business, Glamour Gal Kids Spa Ajax, is offering free virtual art workshops for the children of healthcare workers as part of our National Nursing Week tributes. Today, we are giving a shout out to Dishni for her initiative and to the children of the parents on the front line, including our nurses.
So again, here you can make the edges a little curved.
Glamour Gals has 6 locations across Ontario. We are a kids spa franchise. We do kids' birthday parties, events, mommy and me spa packages, workshops and camps, paint nights, all sorts of things for kids. When COVID-19 happened, we had to figure out a way to pivot the business just to survive. So we came up with a whole series of kids' virtual events and parties, and we now give kids an opportunity to connect online. Let's see. Maybe add a little bit more brown, Cameron. It's too white. I wanted to do something to celebrate our frontline heroes here in the Durham region. And I thought what better way to celebrate them than to put a smile on the faces of their children. So I've launched an initiative where I will be running 4 virtual workshops. There will be a total of 80 spots for kids. There's 2 virtual paint nights and 2 of our very popular virtual slime making workshop, which is called Be a Slimeologist. We'll be packaging up supplies that they need in neat little boxes like this, and we'll be delivering it right to their front door. They don't need to go and buy anything at all, and everything in this program will be completely free of charge for them.
Hi, my name is Charlie, and this is my mom Amanda, and she's a nurse, and she's working in the ICU at North York General.
I've been working a little bit extra, so this one's made a few more sacrifices with me not being around. We just started doing the virtual Zoom paint nights, and this is some of the artwork here.
I painted this unicorn and this panda.
They've just started to offer Frontline Heroes option as a donation. So we're thanking them. We're going to be doing that in a few weeks. So what do we say?
Thank
you, Glam Gal Kids Spa Ajax.
Bye.
Yes, thank you. If you'd like to share a story about your frontline hero, tag us on Twitter or Instagram at CBC Toronto, send us a message on Facebook, or just email us at tips@cbc.ca. That'd be Toronto Tips. Now, Colette, we know with kids home these days, parents are happy to get any kind of help. You've got an update on a program we featured before, Therapeutic Paws of Canada. What are they doing during the pandemic?
Well, I'll tell you, Dwight, yeah, it's very difficult right now to have a visit with a therapy dog, but they can still provide those benefits even if they can't interact. So even if you can't meet it and smell it and pet its fur, what they are doing now are virtual visits. And so this is called story time. And what happens is the handler has their therapy pet beside them, and they read a book, and then the kids can listen to the story, they can see the pictures, but they also get to see how the therapy dog reacts to hearing the story as well. Even if sometimes that just means kind of relaxing and having a little bit of a yawn on the couch.
I do not eat green eggs and ham. I do not eat them. I do not like them, Sam I am.
Where did you come up with this idea, and can you explain it to us?
Sure. So we have a program called Pause to Read, which is where our teams go into schools and libraries, and they work with young children who are struggling to read, or sometimes the teachers or librarians use it as a benefit program or a rewards program. So the children read to the dogs and the cats in our program. And so we knew that because school was canceled and these kids are now at home, some of these kids were really missing these programs, and we wondered, how can we still connect with these guys? So of course they don't get quite the same benefits because they don't get to sit with the pet and pet them and whatnot, but a lot of them are friendly and familiar faces that they're used to seeing.
And what does Lucky do when you're reading a story?
Well, sometimes Lucky sits patiently or falls asleep, and sometimes she actually gets engaged in that story, and she will paw at a page or wants to nudge me, and I don't know if it's the tone of the voice or the story itself, but she seems to want to know more or look at a picture or whatever. She hasn't quite told me yet, so I don't really know what it is she's thinking.
You're already out there as a frontline worker, as a paramedic.
Yes.
What in the world then inspires you as well to be doing this in the free time that you have when you're already in such a stressful role?
Well, there's a number of aspects to it. So my job as a paramedic is quite fast-paced, and I see people in some of their worst moments of their days. And of course, they're usually happy to see us, but we only get to see them for a short amount of time. And I find that through the Therapy Pet program, that we get to spend some time, we get to make longer, stronger connections with the people that I get to see. It's a very rewarding program. Every time I have new people applying, the first thing they ask is, do you think I might like it? And I say yes, because our volunteers have told me time and time again that they get just as much out of it as the people that we're visiting.
And if you do want to set the kids up with story time, although I'll tell you, Therapeutic Paws of Canada really emphasize this is good for everyone, seniors, adults. I know I get a kick out of it, but they have a YouTube channel, so just put in Therapeutic Paws of Canada, and then you can find a variety of stories from folks across the country. Also, looking for kids with their own stories, you can send those to tpocstorytime@gmail.com, Dwight.
And we're done. Good night, everybody.